Hey everybody, Tom Barnes, stories from the 78 today from the West Loop neighborhood right here at Madison and Loomis. This place has been here for a long time, a Chicago staple. It has seen this area come and go over the years. I mean, this right here on Madison used to be a place called Skid Row like back in the day. And now it's like multi-million dollar businesses everywhere. And my friend Connie Fairbanks wrote a story about Chicago's West Loop, formerly just known as the Near West Side. So I'm gonna talk to Connie now and we're gonna hang out in the historic Palace Grill for this story from the 78. All right, if these walls could talk, I'm sure they have plenty of stories to share in this particular neighborhood at a institution here in the West Loop, the Palace Grill. I'm here with my friend Connie Fairbanks. How are you, Connie?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you for joining me. And you just came off the event of your new book release, but it's about all the fun and amazing stories here in the West Loop, right?
Yes, because there's a lot more than just Google and McDonald's. We love having them here, but there's history that goes back to the mid-18th century. There's been a lot of ups and downs, and there's a lot of stories behind those buildings.
Right, and you have a vested interest. You've lived in this neighborhood before it was trendy to live in this neighborhood. Before it was probably even called the West Loop. It was just called the Near West Side?
Near West Side and West Loop Gate or Greektown, because I live near Greektown, and we've been here since like 97. So this is the longest place I've ever lived in my life.
And this book was a labor of love, 5 years, and the pandemic years as well, right?
Yes, 5 years. I did more than 100 interviews for this book, and then used a lot of our great libraries to write the book, and then spent during COVID a lot of time actually putting it down on paper. And my husband kept me prodded with multiple espressos.
So when you talk about the different borders of this book, what borders are you talking so people have a general idea? Because it's a debate between more real estate people than it is actual Chicagoans.
It is, and it has changed since I lived here. When I first moved here, I would never go to Lake Street because it was all prostitutes. I would never go to Fulton Market because it was all the trucks, and they didn't want you there, or you might see a carcass on the street. And then I would never go past Racine Street. It was scary. But now the boundaries have changed. I believe it's 290 or Van Buren, roughly Des Plaines and Jefferson. This area was not hit by the fire, and Old St. Pat's is over there. And now we have to include Fulton Market because it's where everyone goes to eat at the various great restaurants we have. And then Ashland Avenue. And it's going west. But those are my boundaries for the sake of the book.
And now the West Loop, so that sounds like then the United Center is included in the West Loop footprint?
It's not, but I think it did influence. When the new stadium was built,
Everybody thought they were nuts for doing it too.
Yes, I think that helped a lot. I think the 1996 Democratic Convention, because they really cleaned up Madison Street. So it was safe to go down because all those politicians saw it, and Mayor Daley wanted it to look good. So I think that really helped. Harpo helped. She had her first show over here, I think it was 1990. And then some of the early developers like Annie Properties, they all came over here. And people wanted to live in these old loft buildings.
Right, some of those loft buildings are where house music was, and the Warehouse nightclub started house music. Frankie Knuckles, that was in this neighborhood. Those are some of the early days of this neighborhood turning into something that was different than what it was.
Yes, and Jerry Kleiner with his restaurants on this neighborhood. They're all gone now, but I think I can say he's coming back with the restaurant. La Sardine space has been empty for 2 years, right by 1000 West Washington. He just told me 2 or 3 days ago he is opening a restaurant in that space. So Jerry Kleiner will be back. And if anyone knew his restaurants, they were the restaurants in Chicago. He started all the restaurants over here.
And one of the main streets that runs right through the West Loop here is Halsted. Yes. And you talked about in the book specifically the music venues. Some of them are probably not sanctioned by the law.
Right.
Some were, but there's a lot of brothels on Halsted Street. Music.
Burlesque.
Like, I had no idea.
Neither did I until I started digging into this book. Florence Ziegfeld of the Ziegfeld Follies fame got his start at the Academy of Music Wild Bill Hickok was there, and he threw something that evening, and he got hired to go on the show with them. And that started his career, along with, he helped produce the Columbian Exposition in 1893, and he lived across from Whitney Young High School.
Unbelievable. There's so much history that's happened here. Well, this is real interview time. Look at this. Our ham sandwiches have shown up. Thank you very much.
The best ham sandwiches in Chicago. It tastes like Easter on a plate.
I love it. And that, in this particular place that we're in, is one of the staples that have kind of seen this neighborhood change. The Palace Grill right here across from the 911 Center in Chicago. But talk about some other things that have surprised you when you were on this journey of finding this book, because there's so much here that so many people have not written about except for newspaper articles scattered throughout time.
I had frankly didn't know the 911 Center was here because it's kind of a barricade. You don't really know what's there. And I found out about it when I was walking outside during COVID. I saw some people smoking, and I chatted with them through the revolving door. And they are the ones that take the calls when somebody calls. And they told me that they probably have saved a couple people's lives over the year. And I have taken a tour of that building, which is, I didn't really know it was here. It was been here since like 92. So it's been here a while. Some of the other surprises, there was a doctor that lived by where I live, Green and Monroe. And he had a doctor's office, and he had a waiting room, and in the waiting room, he had a basket that mothers could put their children if they couldn't take care of them.
He's like one of the first ones ever to do that in the country.
He is, in the country. He started the Foundlings Orphanage, and he probably took care of 3,000 or 4,000 kids over the year. And that was Dr. Shipman. And it eventually merged in with Rush Hospital. But every time I walk by that block, I can't help but think about what he did.
And there are people who have huge influence over the world that either call this neighborhood home or right outside this neighborhood. A lot of those buildings are gone, but some of them are still around, repurposed and all that stuff. But, I mean, Schwinn was here in Chicago.
Yes, Schwinn was here for a short time. And now it's very exciting because now across the street is our new specialized bike store. So the bikes are still around here, which is great. In that same Schwinn building, I actually met somebody via online article. I found some of the granddaughters of the owner that they used to make brooms in that building. And some of the photos are in my in the book.
And there's also many other places that made musical instruments in Chicago as well.
Wilson drums were made here. Lion and Healy is still here since the 1890s. Some of the finest harps in the world. Piano benches were made here. Let's see. Well, I mentioned Florence Ziegfeld got his musical start here. Peter Bent pianos were made here. Yeah, there was a lot of music here. There were other industries too, like the garment industry.
Right, and that's kind of where you are, right? The garment district.
And those buildings really haven't been torn down. They're 7-story buildings, solid, that have been repurposed. I mean, Hartshafter Marx was here, and Oxford. That's where all the presidents had their suits made. All the presidents.
Right here in Chicago.
Right here in Chicago. President Obama, his inauguration suit was made here.
Unbelievable. And going back to what you talked about at the beginning of the interview when you talked about Google and McDonald's.
Right.
McDonald's is in a historic spot, and I think a lot of people don't know that.
Let me shed some light on that. It used to be an armory building, and they had their own little band. But sadly, it was a morgue for the Eastland disaster. And
right on the Chicago River.
I have a photo in the book about that. After that, it was Fred Nile's studio. He did a lot of industrials, and he also did the Mickey D movie. And then after that, it was Harpo, and then it was torn down, and now it's McDonald's worldwide headquarters. I'm hoping they will put some sort of a marker so we know the history of that corner.
And you definitely see the history being rewritten or repurposed, even when you go down like Fulton Market, where you go down the street and you look and there's like these giant cement like sidewalks. It's because they had to raise the sidewalks because it was all the loading docks for all the trucks. Because like you said before, Fulton Market, the street was terrifying back in the day. It was carcasses and was mostly all industrial. This entire neighborhood.
Mostly all industrial. And nearby was a cutlery store that was there to service all the meat packers, would sharpen their knives and so forth. They moved about 2 years ago. I didn't mention by McDonald's is a famous street. Carpenter Street is right there. That was named after Mr. Philo Carpenter. He owned a lot of the land right around here, and he was the first pharmacist in Illinois.
Really?
Mr. Philo Carpenter.
And then there's also a story about a YMCA.
Oh, yes. Nearby where I live was a Dressograph. It was a company, a gentleman, Mr. Duncan, came from Iowa and wanted to somehow label envelopes. He developed a machine to do that. And when he would come to work, he didn't live in the neighborhood. He would see kids playing in the street and said, they can have a better place to live than this. So he founded the Duncan YMCA at Monroe and Halstead. There used to be a lot of bodybuilding events there. They have a pool in the basement with all the mosaic tiles. It was a Salvation Army, and now it's been repurposed into the Duncan Flats.
So many stories. Connie, we could talk forever about this, and I would like to maybe come back and do another half of an interview with you to talk about other things that we didn't cover in this particular part. But we want people to read the book too.
Yes.
So where can they find the book?
They can find the book right here at the Palace Grill. They can find it we have a bookstore now in the West Loop, Madison Street Books. Smitten Boutique, who's been here about 11 years, and Ground Up Coffee and Bites in an old mail order building. And that is at Van Buren and Peoria.
And your website as well.
And my website, ConnieFairbanks.com.
Well, fantastic. Happy reading, everybody. Connie, thank you for doing all this work. You did a great service to the people of Chicago.
It was a labor of love.
Well, thank you very much. All right, how much fun was that, huh? Hearing about the West Loop of Chicago that was just known as the near West Side. Tom Barnish, Chicago@gmail.com. If you have a story from the 78, I would love to hear it. Tom Barnish at TomBarnishChicago@gmail.com. Storiesfromthe78.com is the website. Check it out. Tell your friends. I appreciate it. We'll see you later.